Greetings! Welcome to our show, Ghosts Are Near, where we discuss various aspects of the paranormal and paranormal exploration. I am your host, Keith Johnson, the founder of N.E.A.R. With me is Carl Johnson of N.E.A.R, senior member.
Good evening.
And senior member of N.E.A.R, Kim.
Hello, everyone.
How are you folks?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing just fine.
Great.
I know Carl's losing his voice, so we'll just talk right over him.
Actually, it's
No
pretty much
problem.
lost. It comes back in phases.
It
Have been
happened.
Senator Corleone, Governor Corleone. There wasn't enough time, Michael. That's what you're going to get tonight.
Very good. Well, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest, who is a very prominent paranormal researcher and author, and I cannot say enough about this man. He's written several books, including The World's Most Haunted Places, and he's actually been to many of the world's most haunted places, including the White House, where he's investigated. The mayor of Ghost Village himself, Mr. Jeff Belanger. What do you think, studio audience? We have Jeff Belanger here with us.
Thank you to the studio audience, both of you.
They came on the right night.
It's packed in here.
Yes, it is. Breathing room only.
That's right. Thanks for having me. This is fun. And what an honor it is to be wearing pants, because most days I don't.
Well, good.
I work from home.
You did that just for us.
I did. I thought it would, I didn't want to work blue, so
That's great.
here we are.
We appreciate it. Jeff has come out with another new book.
You don't look solid. It's like my hand passing right through his head. Like, unbelievable. This might be the ghost of Keith.
Well, I had to show up. I really had to. I really did.
That's amazing. I'm sorry, go on.
I can't talk for you tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we rolling?
Yes, we are
Oh,
rolling.
good.
No, this is our dress rehearsal.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Then
That's
we can,
why you dressed.
That's right.
Right?
It's going to get
So-
interesting for the next one.
Tell us about Weird Massachusetts, Jeff.
Weird Massachusetts is a book about a state
Uh-huh.
called Massachusetts, oddly enough. The title, it's one of those titles that just gives it away.
We're
Yes.
so glad you're here to elucidate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Title just grabs you, right?
One critic called it the most important literary work ever.
Really?
It's my mother.
Oh, right. Well, she's the
But
best
she did
critic.
say that, and I listened to her, quite honestly. Weird Massachusetts is part of the Weird U.S. series, which started in a strange state called New Jersey with two guys named Mark, both
Yeah.
named Mark. And then they got they did a national book called Weird U.S., which I contributed to, and then they did a book called Weird Hauntings, which was a lot of fun, and then a TV show on the History Channel called Weird U.S.
Right.
And now there's been a bunch of spin-offs in various states, and I have the dubious honor of putting my name on Weird Massachusetts.
Well, this is fantastic. And I think this is just such an absolutely fascinating book. If you've never been to Massachusetts, this will make you want to come to Massachusetts.
If you're into weird things.
Weird
which
things.
we
Very-
are.
very weird
which
things.
is like we're in good
Yeah.
company, so that's
Right.
good. But the thing is, I mean, I got to be a tourist in my own state. I was born in Massachusetts, and I lived all kinds of other places, and came back about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have some perspective on our weirdness, and I've been the ghost guy for a long time, which I'm sure you know, but this let me branch out in the paranormal world and cover things like Bigfoot and cryptids and UFOs and aliens and folklore and mythology and religion, and then all kinds of other oddities that are just downright strange.
So you're telling me we have all these and more in Massachusetts?
All and more in Massachusetts, thank goodness. And it's really cool when you... my work up to this point has been really international in scope. I've almost avoided my backyard. I just felt like, well, it'll always be there. And this really allowed me to just get in the car and go. And what's great about Massachusetts is we've got Cape Cod, so we've got all this great, rich sea folklore and the Wampanoag stuff. Boston, I mean, the Revolutionary War. America was born in the streets of Boston, and the first shots fired in Concord. But then you've got the middle of the state, and you've got the Berkshires, and they've got wonderful legends and haunts and Bigfoot sightings as well. And early on, working on the book, this is when I realized how crazy everybody is. I organized an expedition to a place called October Mountain, which is in the western part of the state in Lee, Massachusetts.
And when did you go?
This would have been December 2 years ago. So that's when I first started working on this. And I got a Bigfoot guy to go, a ghost guy, a UFO guy, and myself. And the four of us go up into the mountain because all that phenomena has been reported somewhere on the mountain. And so we get there and we're walking up the mountain, and you know, the Bigfoot guy is just mumbling. He's like, you know, I just think Bigfoot's a North American ape that hasn't been categorized yet. You know, nothing paranormal about it. You UFO guys and ghost guys are nuts, though. You know, and the UFO guy's going, hey man, it's just advanced technology from another galaxy. That's not paranormal at all. You know, and but ghosts
on TV all the time.
Really, Bigfoot? Wouldn't we find a dead one somewhere?
It really sounds as though you're leading into a joke here.
No, and then we walked into a bar, which is, no, I'm just kidding. And then, you know, of course, the ghost guy is just going, well, hey, you know, I think there's life after death, and we chase after this phenomena. And then we realized we're all absolutely incredibly insane. We're just nuts. And we had a great time. There's a lot of crossover when you're studying the paranormal, and there's actually, there's a danger if you get too much in a silo, you know. For example, orbs, which we all love. We love orbs more than anything else on Earth, of course. In the 1980s, this was first UFO phenomenon. UFO people had orbs before anybody else. They said it's alien energy, you know. And then in the 90s, and when the ghost hunter movement, the ghost people stole the orbs along the way. And I have a friend of mine who wrote a book called Waiting for Mary about Marian apparitions, Virgin Mary sightings, all over the country. And he was telling me, now he's not a paranormal guy at all. He was just into that subject.
He just does this one.
Just did this one book, and he told me, he's like, man, people kept showing me these pictures with these like little glowing balls on them and saying that's Saint Anthony and that's Jesus, and I said, oh my God, they're everywhere. So it's the same phenomena, you know, reported across all different, you know, religions and beliefs and all kinds of oddities. But you realize there's something out there, and we need something to hold on to. And I think that's a big part of what these legends are. Massachusetts has its legends. That's where I live. It was a lot of fun. But they're not that unique, really. I mean, other states have got their legends, and ghostly places, and, you know, haunted places, and UFO sightings, and odd folklore, and odd people that make the place special and memorable.
Right. I think most people, in general, when they think of Massachusetts equated with the paranormal, of course, they think of Salem, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, they think of the witch trials and the witches.
Never heard of it.
And no, well, you may pass through it someday. No, actually, you've written about it in here, so you're quite a scholar on Salem. And I have personally seen you on the Travel Channel talking about Salem and the witch hysteria and everything like that, so I know you are a scholar on it.
I've been there. It's all right. Salem's a great place. What I love about Salem is, you know, history is of course very much alive there, but so is the weird, you know. And what started in 1692 with the witch trials is still around today to some degree, which is interesting. You know, in the one regard, we don't forget what happened, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And but also, it's become like this New Age capital of the world for a number of reasons. One, you know, there were witch trials elsewhere in the world, and a lot more people killed, you know, for being a witch. But
by comparison,
right?
And
of course, not that, you know, I'm not saying Salem's no big deal, but at the same time, Salem's embraced this. You go there, and the police cars have got, you know, the witch riding a broomstick on the door, and it's part of who they are.
Witch City. Less serious because of that? I don't know. I
they
mean,
still have a gun,
right? Yeah,
they still have a gun, and they told me no rubber bullets up there. So yeah, I took that seriously. But yeah, it's a great town with so many witches, and you know, there's streets like Witch Way and Cauldron Court that to remind you of where you are, and all the witch museums and all the witchy shops. But what happened was, in the 1950s, a guy named Arthur Miller wrote a play called The Crucible, where he really did his homework, and he dug everything up, and he produced this amazing work that has been performed in high schools and community theaters and made into movies and all this other stuff. It was an allegory for McCarthyism back in the 50s. That was his point. And it wasn't the first nor the last witch hunt. And his point was, I mean, there's witch hunts in your town in the school PTA. You know, I mean, on a smaller scale. And so Arthur Miller did this in the 50s. In the 60s, Parker Brothers came in and started producing the Ouija board in town. In the 1970s, a witch named Laurie Cabot moved into town and opened up the first witch shop. And she's quite a colorful character and a lot of fun to talk to. And then other witches started coming. They started opening shops, and now they boast something like 2,000 witches. I think that's probably a little bit high, but you know, it's the kind of thing that they spout off, and it's just become this draw. It's great for tourism. You know?
There is quite a market for it.
Right, and Salem has become a destination for all things odd, all things ghostly, occult, witchy, you know, and everything in between. But but a great place, a great haunt to visit. I try to avoid it in late October because I'm
Yeah.
not into like huge crazy crowds, but
Right. Oh yeah.
And
yeah,
they're
it's like
there.
Mardi Gras then in
it is.
October.
That's
and
exactly
Halloween
right.
season.
That's exactly right. It's
That's
Mardi
the
Gras.
worst time to go to me. For me, it's.
Oh, I agree.
I just don't want to
Yeah.
deal with the crowds.
I'll see my friends in the summer when before the crowds, but it's such a funny community because you'd think like that all get along. We're witches, we got to stick together. They don't at all.
No.
They infight like nobody's business, almost like the paranormal.
Oh yeah, almost.
Almost, not
that
quite.
bad.
No one's that bad, but you know,
I was here first.
that's
and,
right. Yeah, that's my
You know,
building.
I'm
You
a
can't
Putnam. I go
investigate.
way back. You know,
And it's so there's a lot of fighting with each other. I talked to a police officer up there who was telling me that they'll get called to domestic disputes where people are casting spells on each other.
yeah.
I'm like, how do you handle that? I mean, he's like,
My
well,
spell's better than yours.
right, it's they're clicking their heels and all that other stuff. He says he just shoots them.
Oh, that's
No,
that's
he
a good
didn't
way
say
of
that.
dealing
I'm
with
just
it.
kidding. Sorry, officer. He didn't say that. It's the old wood
Let's edit
shampoo.
out his disclaimer and just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Well, I want to talk about something really scary in this book.
Yes,
This will kind of
this is the most frightening thing in
go up your spine. Pink flamingos.
Hey.
You know. Now, who does not get unnerved by pink flamingos?
I think we have one here. Can
Yeah,
we
you
pass that over?
actually brought one in to show us.
Now, this
Are
one-
you responsible for this?
He's
I am.
legless.
Yeah, he's wow.
What
That's
happened?
really
kind of
scary.
sad. Yeah.
Dinner?
Do
On
we
the
really
way
need
in?
a close-up on this?
No, we've all seen it.
Yeah.
I took this from the front lawn of the cable access station here, and I'll put it back when we're done. Not to worry. But it's mostly things. But
It's friendly.
no, I'm kidding.
You're like the nature guy that comes on, right?
Whoa, she could attack. Careful. Leominster, Massachusetts, 1956. Don't touch the flamingo ever. Oh my God! I got to get a new one. It's like a ruined crystal.
I've desecrated it.
You're going to have to soak it in water now.
I have a friend that had his flamingo stolen from his front lawn. And
I'll put them back.
he was-
Okay,
he
I'll
was
put them
not-
back. I'm
He was
sorry.
not a happy camper. He went online and talked about it. And he put up a blog, and he was not a happy camper.
It happens. But in 1956, Leominster, Massachusetts, now called Plastic City, also the birthplace of, God, you didn't read the book,
Yes,
Tupperware.
I did. Tupperware.
Tupperware,
Yeah.
also invented. And without Tupperware, we couldn't have Tupperware parties. Am I right?
And why are you pointing at me?
You were, sorry, I just missed Carl.
Tupperware hostess.
But so 1956, a guy named Don Featherstone gets hired by Union Products right out of art school, and they said, mold us a flamingo. And so he got to work, and this product just became a piece of kitsch Americana. He told me that through the plastic pink lawn flamingo, they brought poor taste to poor people all over the world. And I said, that's really beautiful. But the real thing has got his signature on the bottom. And it's there in Leominster that it was always produced right up until a few years ago, and sadly it's not made anymore. And the reason your friend's flamingos were probably stolen were because they're not made. I paid $35 online
Oh, wow.
for those.
So
because
they're actually a collector's item of sorts now, right?
it's obscene to say so, but yeah, they've
Really?
become a collector's item.
Wow. Our last guest actually resides in Leominster, so yeah, I mean, we're attracting
Coincidence?
it more and more.
I
is
think
yours.
not.
Strange but true.
Yes.
Now, there's a chapter in here about, here's more flamingos.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Lake Chattanooga Choo-Choo, or how do you pronounce it?
Webster Lake.
Yes, right, Webster Lake in Webster, Massachusetts.
I can say it actually.
Yeah.
It's 47 letters long.
Yeah.
Lake Shagagaga Man Shagagaga Chabanamungамаг is actually, it is, yeah.
What have you just conjured?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems like it should be followed up with
Yeah.
something. You're leading into something.
Does that fit on a Scrabble board?
No,
Would you
don't
win?
have enough
You'd
letters.
probably win.
It's 47 letters long. It's the third longest named location ever. It's Webster Lake in the little town of Webster, Massachusetts, and it's what they're known for.
Yeah.
And
Named by Samuel Slater.
well, it's a Nipmuc term.
I mean, not the long name. It's
Right.
the,
But named for Webster, right? But it's what it means was there's a long explanation. The bottom line is it means that sort of loosely, you fish on your side of the lake, I fish on mine. No one fishes in the middle, and there's peace. And what it was is there was two different Native American tribes there, and there was an English settlement, and they all settled around the lake, which is a beautiful lake. It's nice, clear water, great for fishing and boating and stuff like that. And there was peace. Everybody just stuck to their portion, and
Didn't they add on to the name though when Samuel Slater came in and put a mill there?
right. That was the part that said the white man's this part.
Yeah, there's English here.
The
working
Shagag
and
tribes at
whatever,
that part, and Should we all cough? Would that help, like, mask it?
On cue.
Talk amongst yourselves. Try to help. I'll give you a topic.
Trying to help.
That could be contagious.
It could be. Could you
Probably
cough
will be.
that way?
No.
Okay, now here's something that is close to my heart. I'm very interested in the Borden murders.
Oh.
You
Yeah.
can see
Lizzie.
the Lizzie Borden murders, and we're all familiar with them. At least we are.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. And I know you've been there. You've recently been there at the Borden house.
Yeah, just there a couple days ago.
Yep. So tell me what went on.
Well, the Borden...
Did you solve the case?
I did.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you did. Yeah.
This is awkward, but I did it. I admit it. It was me.
Now we know.
I'm
you
coming
look good
out.
for your age, too.
Yeah,
Really good.
no,
yeah.
it's time. I'm sick of living the lie. I did it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the Borden case really captured the world. She was the O.J. Simpson of the 1890s, and it was the kind of case that everybody was talking about. You had this affluent family and this girl with all the circumstantial evidence pointing to her, but nothing else.
Yep.
And she was acquitted, and everybody wanted to know why. There's been so much conjecture. Psychics have weighed in. Historians have weighed in. We don't know. We're never going to know. I think that's the bottom line.
That's what I think. We're never going to know. Not in this life.
That's right.
No, definitely.
But at the same time, this has become an interesting haunt in Massachusetts and New England, of course. I had an experience there, actually, one of my very few. I was there back in January, and the house was closed for renovations. We had permission to be in there while they were closed. And it was about 11:30 at night. There were only 4 of us in the building, and all 4 of us were in the basement. And we heard what sounded like footsteps, just trot, 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 right through the back hall to the kitchen. And we're at the bottom of the basement steps. If you guys have been there, you know that's 10 feet, 12 feet. It's right there. And we hear 2 muffled children's voices. And we just, all 4 of us, look at each other and go, oh, man, someone's in the house. We're not thinking ghosts. We're thinking we're in charge of the house. It's our responsibility for the night. Some kids just broke in. We got to manhandle them out. We got to call the cops, whatever. We're up those stairs in 2-3 seconds, and nothing. The door's locked. Everything's secure. And we just went, that was kind of
It's always eerie when you get children, spirits of children.
There were children killed on that property, Borden children, no less. This was Andrew's cousins. It was his uncle who lived there about 40 years prior, had a wife who went nuts, drowned 3 of her children, and killed herself right on that property in a cistern. And so there's that evidence to back that up. And then the Bordens moved in. And it's funny with the Borden house, you know, any kind of paranormal phenomenon, there's been a lot reported over the years. I call it the most famous phenomena, where anything that happens gets blamed on the most famous resident, sometimes whoever even visited, let alone lived there. You know, like when you go to Virginia and you hear about, you know, these bed and breakfasts that say George Washington slept here, and they're haunted, and they say, yeah, that's George Washington. He's there one night in 1770, and, you know, he's going to haunt there forever. But so that happens where people blame it, you know, on Lizzie or on Andrew but we don't know for sure. But the children have been reported multiple times, and it's something that I actually heard.
We're going to take a slight break, and when we come back, Sandra is going to join us, my co-founder and my lovely wife, Sandra. Okay?
Excellent.
We'll take a quick break. We'll advertise this book.
Yes, if you can read that, we'll give you $1.
Okay, we're back, and now tell us about this book a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually a book called Our Haunted Lives, but that's the Estonian copy. It just came out in Estonia very recently, and it's kind of cool as an author to see your work in other languages. And I can't read a word of it, and I don't know if the translation's any good. I had one book translated into Russian, and I get some emails from Moscow from people who speak English, and I always ask, hey, how's the translation? And I hear like, so-so. Like,
Well, usually it doesn't translate exact, but as long as you get the gist of it. I can read this. Jeff Belanger.
Yeah, right. That's about it.
That seems to translate.
That's all I can read too. Wow. But it's really cool to see that and realize that, you know, I mean, the work transcends, you know, time. It was written years ago, and space and languages, and it's neat that the phenomenon is as popular as it is in Estonia, in Germany, in Moscow, in Russia, and all these other places. So it's definitely worldwide. You know, the idea of ghostly phenomenon obviously resonates with people, regardless of where you live or how wealthy you are, your background, or whatever.
Oh, wow. Now, I know you had a question for Jeff, Sandra.
Get out of here.
Now that you're here with us.
You could have just yelled it in.
Hello there. Get away from my notes.
Happens every time.
Yeah.
I'm actually very interested in cryptids. And especially the things like Loch Ness, the sea serpents, you know, this sort of thing. And I was very intrigued that there was one in your book that I had never heard of, the Herring Cove sea serpent.
Yeah, the Herring
and
Cove
it was
sea
an
serpent, yeah.
excellent picture.
Well, yeah,
I know that's not the actual monster, but I thought it was great.
Yeah,
Yeah, with the double rows of teeth. And
yeah, there were artists that worked on this book in the defense. You have to remember, in the late 1800s in Gloucester, there was so many sightings of a 300-foot-long sea serpent that a newspaper actually wrote an editorial saying, "We're not going to cover this anymore. It's a fact. It exists. It's a foregone conclusion. It's been witnessed by hundreds of people. People sat out for weeks that sit on lawn chairs and watch this sea serpent, and it's not around anymore." And one theory was that it was overfished, you know, and without the food, the serpent, I mean, just a big snake, right, goes somewhere else. Herring Cove, a similar story, but you know, just we have a few in Massachusetts. I think 3, if I'm not mistaken, have been reported throughout the centuries. And the most recent, forgive me, it's not memorized, but I think it was as recent as 1960. So
yeah, around there.
Yeah, so these things every now and then get reported. People that are seafaring folks will tell you they still see these giant things out there, and you know, I wouldn't even. It's almost not. I guess it's not. It's still a cryptid because we haven't trapped one yet or killed it or brought it back.
There's reports right near where Sandra and I live, near Oakland Beach.
Right. There
are reports of some kind of serpent or creature there that. There's people that don't know each other, have never met, they give the same description. You know, it's affectionately known as Okey Pokey because it's the Oakland Beach monster, whatever like that. Sure. But, I mean, some people swear that there is something unexplained there.
I mean, look at, like, the giant squid, right? That was a myth until, like, what, a year ago, 2 years ago, when they got one. And
I watch all those documentaries on the History Channel.
Architeuthis was known by seafarers as the kraken. It was this legendary monster that was supposed to extend its tentacles and pull ships underneath or vessels underneath the ocean surface.
Like we all saw Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Way before that.
No, you're right. But yeah, no, and so these things are out there. We haven't cataloged everything that's on this planet with us yet, not by far.
Well, in the same mode.
Yes.
Now, we had Michael Bell on as
Never heard of
our guest.
I'm just kidding. He's awesome.
I think you have because he's mentioned in your book.
He's great.
And you know, he talks about vampire lore, and of course, we're very interested in that. There was an actual incident in Plymouth that I had never. I mean, you know, Keith even actually does a lecture on vampires, New England vampire lore, you know, that sort of thing. And I don't think, I know that you knew it existed, but I had never actually heard of it because all I know is what I hear in his lectures.
I actually, I found it in Michael Bell's book, Food for the Dead. That was the first mention of it. And he didn't go into great detail on it. In fact, when I started looking into it, I was swapping my notes with him and telling him what I was finding. And one of the descriptions was there was a family of 12 that was wiped out. And just like, I mean, it's a similar story, which Michael covers so well in his books, in his book, Food for the Dead. Just like Mercy Brown, you know, you've got in Exeter, Rhode Island, you've got a family that's been wiped out by consumption. And medicine doesn't have a cure for you, so what do? You go to folklore, you go to folk medicine, you go to whatever, because you're desperate. I mean, if your whole family's dying, you'll try anything.
That's true.
Anything. It doesn't matter.
And I don't think a lot of people reading this stuff today get the concept of putting themselves in their place. If you were there at the time and place, what would you do, you know?
Right. And
I would do the same.
Absolutely. If you've got a family of 5, 6, 12, and one by one they're just dying off, you'll try anything, even if that involves exhuming a body, ripping the heart out, and burning it on a rock, and drinking the ashes. I mean,
I don't know if I'd go that far. But
oh, it's great fun.
Well, we're talking 19th century.
The first few times you do it, it's weird, but then it gets a little more normal.
I guess you get used to it.
Once the neighbors accept your practice.
Yeah, right. They get better at it.
The famous French catacombs. Can you briefly touch on your experience there?
Yeah, the catacombs that was a pretty amazing, that was probably my second paranormal experience. It's in Paris, France, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful city, and you get to go there, and it's about 30 meters below the city in a limestone quarry. They hollowed out all below the city to get all the limestone for the building materials. Centuries ago, they put their cemeteries on the outskirts of town, but what happens over time is that the buildings sprawl out, and the cemeteries get enclosed, and the city continues to grow, more people. The cemeteries were overflowing in the mid-1700s, and bodies were spilling into the streets. It was disgusting. People are getting sick nearby, and there's no more room to bury anybody.
Yeah.
So they started moving the bones down into these tunnels and closing off the tunnels, because that was another danger. Buildings were collapsing because you've got hollowed out ground. And when I went down there, I was walking through a series of tunnels, and you get to this one archway that says, "Arrête, c'est ici l'Empire de la Mort," which means, "Stop, this is the Empire of the Dead." And you walk through, and you're greeted by 6 million human skeletons that are in a very macabre, very intricate pattern. And you get in there, and at first it's just the heebie-jeebies all over. And as I was walking down one tunnel, and keep in mind, I mean, I'm 6'2", there was spots where I had to duck to keep going. And if I stretched my hands out in both directions, I'd be touching skulls with both fingertips. It was that narrow. And I'm walking down the tunnel, and I saw a shadow the size of a man move from the right side to the left and then back again. And I just went, I don't have an explanation for that.
Yeah.
And I was alone. I was
there was
completely
nobody
alone.
down there.
It wasn't
With
me.
you.
And it wasn't, I would have seen someone because we're in a narrow tunnel. And so that was really intriguing. But so it starts as like the heebie-jeebies, and then after walking through a mile of this, and there's skulls in the form of Valentine hearts and crosses and everything else.
Yeah, they did get very creative with it.
Yeah, no, and I realized by the end that, this was the only, disturbing a place of the dead is a universal taboo. You don't do it. In every culture, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they had no choice, and because the living take precedent. And when you look at the work that went into this, you realize this was the only way they had to show some respect, was to just not throw them in a pile,
Right.
was to try to make something beautiful out of it. And there's no way to tell who's who anymore. And and then you get back to the surface, and it was really quite humbling.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, believe it or not, we're just about out of time.
I don't believe
This
it.
has gone by so fast.
What show's on after this one? Can we just bump it?
Yeah, let's do a double.
Let's raid their studio.
I know, I
Take it
feel
over.
like
Would
it.
be
It's
happy
tempting.
about that.
This is so fascinating. It's tempting. And Jeff, you got to come back again.
Sure.
We got to do
Yeah.
part
We
2.
could film
May
it
I
at my
ask Jeff
house.
one more question? How do you feel, Jeff, that you've contributed to the paranormal sciences or studies being taken seriously? Since you're such a serious guy.
Very little. I think
Well, let's say being accepted.
I'm a storyteller. I'm a chronicler. I'm a writer, and that's what I do. I'm interested in story, and I'm interested in background and people's experiences. And what I've tried to do is convey that without judgment and as objectively as I possibly can, saying, I'm not going to weigh in either way. I have my own beliefs. I'm searching for my own answers like everybody else. I'm finding a few. I have a lot more questions than I ever did when I started. But at the same time, I'm just going to put out everything that I've learned along the way.
Yeah.
The people I talk to, the places I go to. Because I think if we can share it, if we can make it public, websites, books, whatever, it's there for the discussion. And so that's all I ever want to do is just promote the discussion and tell the stories.
And isn't that endemic to the fields that you will invariably have more questions arise than you'll get answers?
Right.
And besides, you're a great writer.
Oh, well,
Say that. I've read your works. You're a fantastic writer.
With you and my mom in my camp now, I can't do this.
And a wonderful
Read
mayor.
Jeff's books. Yes, wonderful mayor.
Thanks.
All right.
Very fair.
Sandra,
Thank you,
please.
studio audience. Both of you.
All right. Great.